Hello, Dave here. This mini morsel, learn JavaScript with me, functions 4, methods. So we've gone through 3 different function exercises, and this is number 4. And in this one, we're redoing this exercise from chapter 6, and I'll go ahead and show you what it looks like now. And we're just doing this with a method, and we're going to go through all of this. But anyway, I put in a last name like Jones and Billy and what department they work in, surfboards, click surfs up, and you see down here it does the name, last name, comma first, the department, and the hire date. And again, so the whole idea is this employee is done as an object. So this exercise was done in number 6, introducing objects. So let's take a step back for a second. We started out in functions 1, where we talked about the basic syntax, arguments, and created a simple example. Then in functions 2, we returned values from functions. And then in number 3, the last one, we spent some time understanding the variable scope, global versus local variables, and seeing functions as objects or as a variable value, an argument, and an anonymous function, which is just a function with no name. So now, going on into number 4, we are creating an object as a method, or a function as a method, which just means that it is part of an object, right? So having a function, which is an object itself, but having a function as part of an object makes it a method of that object. And the other key piece of this exercise is that in order to access the other properties of that object, of the same object, we need to use the this keyword. So we're introducing the this keyword at this time. So once again, let me just throw up, I'm going through the book, Modern JavaScript, Develop and Design, written by Larry Ellman, and seems to be a pretty good book. We're in chapter 7, functions, moving along pretty well. Been going through all the exercises. But once again, if you wish to find out more about the book, you can go to larryullman.com. I'll go ahead and close that now. So just so you can see where you can go, davecoast.com. I do have a link to larryullman.com here. And I also have what I'm calling my JavaScript sandbox, which is just a subdomain, js.davecoast.com. And that is here. You can also get to it by clicking the Learning JavaScript on the nav bar. But js.davecoast.com, I'm calling it my showcase. And so far we've done the exercises in chapter 4, 5, 6, and 7. We're working on chapter 7 right now. And these are the chapter 7 exercises. This one is the chapter 7 employee function as a method. So I'm just calling it function/method. And it is the same as what we did in chapter 6. And you can see here's that chapter 6 exercise. So the HTML is exactly the same. And you can go ahead and see, but we just upgraded it to show the object function method. So once again, creating, well, let's look at the, we're doing that with a method. Previously, all we did was do this concatenation with the comma space, last name, comma, first name. We did that just with a concatenation of a variable, and we'll look at that code later. Now we're doing it as a method within the object, this employee object within the code. Before we get into the actual code of this, let's go ahead and just take a look using Firebug here. And we'll use this. Okay, so Firebug headquarters. Let me continue here and close that off. I've just recently upgraded, keeping Firebug up to date. It is a wonderful tool, and I will donate shortly, just because using it every day and now more and more. So I basically detached Firebug from the bottom here. If you see it on the bottom here, you see I'm in console mode, and also this little doodad down here changes it from showing the whole console with a command line at the bottom to this enter code on this side versus seeing the results on this side. So I'm just detaching that so we can see it easier. And here it is on this our screen. So I can write code here and we'll see the results here, and I can run code down here. So let's go ahead and create an object to show what's happening here. So I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to call it demo object. And again, I just use a name, standard JavaScript naming convention, camel case, starting with a lowercase letter. And it's starting to, the more you type it, the more you get used to it. And just making sure that I use a word that is completely unique, so that it's not a reserved word or keyword, like you can't use the word bear because it means something within JavaScript. So demo object equal and squigglies. And this is the basic object creation setup. And this is how we're shown in the book. And then I'm going to say first property colon, and this is how you define object properties. And I'm just going to call it string1, show that I can do a string, separate it with a comma, and then sec for second property colon. I'm going to do 150 for a number, right? So a string in apostrophes, a number without any quotation or apostrophes, and then we'll do property 3 colon, and I'll just make that true just to show that we can do a Boolean expression. And then I'm going to go ahead now, let's go ahead and do our method, which is basically putting a function in an object. So I'm going to do a function called add numbers. And I went ahead and spelled that out. Add numbers, and it's a function. So let's do our function parentheses, space, squigglies, curly braces, right? And notice that there's no name of the function, or the name of the function is add numbers as the method name. So, and I'm just going to do some console log, so it'll show us the values of the function just for demonstration purposes. So if I do console.log, and I'll say show the value below colon space apostrophe. I guess I don't need the space. I'll just do apostrophe because I'm going to concatenate that with \n, escape, new line, close it, and separate it with a semicolon. Then console.log, and we will do this. So here we are introducing this. Notice it's in blue there. I'm going to say this dot second property, right? So I'm basically saying this object, so it's going to use whatever value is in the current instance of the object, demo object, and I have to use this in order to reference these values, and that is the whole purpose of the exercise here, and understanding that this keyword is, it is necessary to use it so that JavaScript knows what value you're referring to. So in order to reference from this function properties of the object I'm in, this object I'm in is this, so it's this dot second property. Now this function can use that as a variable. So this dot second property plus, and this is the most, this is the key item of this lesson. So this dot sec property plus this dot sec property. And I'm just adding it to itself for the fun of it. And I'll close that guy down, and then I'll do a console.log and do a quick little, do another new line and do console.log, and the value is shown above. Need some typing lessons, colon, let's quote that, and close it off. All right, so now we're creating a new object, and we're creating a method, because here is a function, so our method is going to be add numbers. So let's go ahead and create it. I'm going to do run. Ooh, notice that it's created over here. So now if I come down here, and I just do demo object, right? And I can highlight that and click run. Right, here's my object, here's our properties, right? But let's go ahead and run demo object dot add numbers with the squigglies because it's a function. Let me highlight it and run. And notice what it does here. Show the value below, 300, because it added those together, and the value is shown above. So just the console.log messages. Well, let's go ahead and change that value, right? I can change demo object dot second property. Let's go ahead and change it to a string. What the heck? So I'll make that equal to string value ABC. And let's highlight that and run it. And notice that I've changed this second property, right, to string value ABC. And here we go. If I run the function again, right, show the value below, string value ABC, right? Because just doing the plus on a string is just going to concatenate it together. So it just concatenated these two guys, and the value is shown above. Now let's go ahead and look at the actual example here, and we'll look at the specific code. And please note, this console within Firebug, I mean, you can use the console in the other tools out there. I'm sure they have them. I just find the Firebug one has been the easiest one for me to work with. Love it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off Firebug for a moment and bring up, here's the actual code. And here's the code originally from chapter 6, and here's the new code. in chapter 7 with the function in there. Let's just take a quick buzz through number 6 to see what it used to do. So looking at number 6, right, it created or it was executing this add employee function, right? And JavaScript starts at the bottom. So when the window.onload event occurred, so once the window is loaded, it goes to the wait for the surf's up button. And here's that wait for surf's up button function. And it does a reference to the form. And when that button is submitted, triggers the submit event, it executes the add employee function, right? And here's a function as a value assigned, right? So here's the function add employee. We create a variable, right? And we create 4 variables that are referencing, right? These 3 reference the data coming in, and this one reference the data going back out. And then we create a variable for the actual object for the employee, right? That has a property for first name, last name, department, and hire date, which is just set for today's date, right? So here's our object creation. Then we create the message information, which is called variable, is a variable called message out, right? We concatenate all those values together. And we basically, since we have HTML here, we use inner HTML to put message out back out to the screen. So that was the chapter 6 version of it. Now in chapter 7, we create this guy, right, using the function to do this concatenation. So down here, right, we concatenated the last name, comma, first name, and here we're doing last name, comma, space, first name within the function. And the whole idea here, again, right, is to introduce us to this. And this is the most important thing to learn from this lesson is this, and this. We need this in order to be able to reference the values first name and last name. And if we did it without this, it would say these variables would be undefined. It has to use this to know what's being that it's referencing the current object or the same object that the function is in executing from. So with that being said, and walking through the example, let's quickly buzz through the debugger, and we'll call it a day on this guy. So let's move this guy out of the way. Let's go back to Firebug, our wonderful friend here, and I'm going to switch to script mode here, right? I went from the console to script. I need to reload to show the scripts. It's showing HTML right now. So I will go ahead and click on my chapter 7 employee.js. And I'm going to scroll down and go to the first executable statement within add employee, right? Creating that first variable so that it stops here. There's our breakpoint. And let's go ahead and do new values here. And I'll do some test values. So I'm going to do first name. And I'll do last name, right? Just to show that I don't have any creative skills. And we'll go with board shorts as our selection from the drop down. Now, once I click the button here, right, we should hit our breakpoint, bringing these values in. So I click the button, it hits our breakpoint. Let's go ahead and pull this guy over, right? So now we see, and I'm just scrunching this over a little bit so we can see more of the JavaScript code. There we go. I guess I can make that a little bit bigger. All right, so it's about to execute this line. Let's go ahead and see that variable is undefined. So let's go ahead and step. It created this variable and it got first name. That's what I remember. I just entered that. And let's create the second variable, right? You see the values are showing up here, not undefined anymore. Or I can just hover over them. What a wonderful tool this debugger is. And now I got the board shorts in there for my department in. And now we're about to create, right? Here's the employee out. It basically doesn't have a value, but I created the reference to this element. So now we're going to create this employee work object. So let's step through that. Let's create the first property, the second property, the third property, and create the function, and create the date object. So we have now a simple value property, which is a string, a simple value property, which is a string, another simple value. So that's three simple value properties that are strings, a function, which is a method in this object, and a date object, which is an object within an object. So starting to do some real JavaScript here. So go ahead and page down. So now our object has been created, right? If I hover over that, notice it's got the object and the appropriate values there, right? Same over here, right? You can see it's in green, right? So strings are in red, objects are in green, and if it was a number, it would be in a different color. But let's keep going here. And we started putting this, right, variable message out, right? And we're executing this get name function. That's why we bopped up here to the get name, and it's going to put this together, right? So we just told it, notice when I hover over these things, it's all undefined now. Well, that's because I'm up here in this object, and that's our global and locally scoped variables. So continue on. So let's go ahead and finish that now that it's got the first name and last name. And we put the rest of the message together. And now it's going to put it out to the string, out to the screen. Then we'll return false and we'll be done. So that put our values out to the screen. And, right, here's our message out. That's what we're going to see out there. We return false and then we're done. So let's go ahead and finish that up. I'll remove my breakpoint, reattach this to the bottom. Notice that our values are out here. I'm going to turn off Firebug. And we see here's our first name, last name, board shorts, and employee added, last name, comma, first name, board shorts, and hire date. So obviously we didn't add this into a database or anything. We got to learn it step by step. So this is the key things, is that a method is a function as an object property, and in order to access other properties within that object, you have to use the this keyword. So learn JavaScript with me, Chapter 7, Functions 4, or the employee exercise, a method example. Thanks for watching. This is Dave, davecoast.com, and you can, Dave at davecoast.com. If you want to hook up with me, you can use js.davecoast.com to come out, debug away these. That's the whole purpose of having these exercises out there. And yeah, if I'm droning on too much or any constructive criticism, good or bad, go ahead, send me a note or leave a comment at the bottom of the video. So Dave from davecoast.com, thanks for watching. And hopefully we both know a little more JavaScript than we did a few minutes ago. Thank you.